And welcome back to the Chosen Journey with Big Money Grip, Steve Carsey. Steve, as we promised last week, we're going to be talking about the hottest team in baseball. Any idea who we're going to be discussing today?
Probably the Tampa Bay Rays.
Absolutely. Until the Blue Jays walloped them and took 2 out of 3, surprisingly, behind future American League Cy Young Award winner Kikuchi. Maybe. By the way, the city is getting swept up in Kikuchi fever, by the way. Like everybody is crying about Manoa and they're getting really excited about Kikuchi. And on the radio, all they're saying is, guys, it's April. It's April. Let's keep a level head here. It's April. But Steve, it's hard. Even 2 weeks into the season, you see the Rays making history, 13-0 start. I really love what they're about.
They're a fundamentally sound ball club. It's the easiest way to put it into a box. They do a lot of things really well. They pitch well. They situationally hit well, moving guys over, getting guys in when they're less than two outs with runners on third base, and they hit the long ball. It's like you add all of those little pieces up, and the game's going to dictate what you need to do. So if they need a guy to go up there and move a guy over to try to tie the game up or drive them in with a sac fly with less than two outs, man on third, the odds are that they're going to do it consistently over the long haul. So um, they do a great job in Tampa of putting teams together, constructing teams with the resources that they have and the payroll that they have. They use analytics well, and at the end of the day, I just think they're a little bit ahead of the rest of Major League Baseball in how they evaluate players and what makes them the best that they can be, playing in the ballpark that they are and putting a group of guys together collectively that play together as a group.
You made me think of a item that I had a question. I wasn't going to go there, but now I really want to go there. So the funny thing about the Tampa Bay Rays goes like this. They've been doing this consistently for quite a while this way. And all of a sudden you got managers, coaches, executives, and other teams poach the talent. They're saying the Rays have the secret sauce. We got to get this over to our team. And it seems like those people leave the Rays, go to those other teams with mixed results. The Rays keep changing it over as far as on the field from a coaching perspective or the executive level, and they just keep it going. Is what it like you would think that as far as when people would leave, they would leave with the intelligence or leave with the formula, but somehow the Rays keep going. How are they able to do it even with turnover, with coaching and executives, do you think?
Well, the formula or the secret sauce is in the front office on how they run their algorithms and how they run the way they you know evaluate the player, whether it be exit velocity, whether it be contact quality, whether it be swing decisions. There's so many things that go into evaluating a player on a computer with the results that he has previously done uh, in the batter's box. So, or on the mound, so to speak. But they look at these little things that other teams maybe don't look at, and then they give that information and pass it through the tunnel down to the coaches, and then there's the communication and the collaboration of how they want to work with the player. But when these coaches leave this organization, they don't get to take that information with them. It's all proprietary. So the front office is, so whatever they can remember in their brain is part of it, but it's still hard to put what's in your brain on a computer with a different ball club. And then, that front office has their own secret sauce on the valuation of their own players that they bring in and construct a roster. So it's just how each individual team decides how they want to construct a roster and put what players with what and how they do it. Like you think about the Rays, right? I mean, uh, you know, you got the Yandy Diaz's, right? You got the Arozarenas. You had the G-Man Choice. He's not there anymore, but they have these guys that are right-handed, left-handed. Each guy does their own specific thing really well, and then they figure out how to put that puzzle together along with their pitching and just be consistently good in competing on the field with what they do. They're just fundamentally sound. They play great defense. They situationally hit well. They hit for power, and they play as a group. And when you can do that, that's how you win baseball games. I don't care what your payroll is.
You take Judge, you take Otani, you take Trout, for example, and you say these are 10 out of 10 players on whatever scale. It's and the funny thing is like we're talking a little bit about the Angels off camera there, but uh it's the spread as far as from top to bottom lineup where it seems like on the Rays every player is a 7 out of 10 and 8 out of 10, just so consistent. I looked at their numbers after that J series when they finished 13-2 with that record. Team average batting 279, 352 on base, 548 slug as a team. And you're looking across the spectrum, everybody's doing it. This is a team effort completely. Was it a Arozarena that just had such a good WBC that now he's brought the bat over that he was using WBC and everybody touches the bat, everybody touches him for good luck. It just seems like he's brought that magic over. Maybe him playing with Team Mexico against Team Japan, he said, guys, maybe Team Japan was onto something here. And like, cause like the way you're describing how the Rays are playing right now made me think of our discussion with Team Japan of how they were playing in the semifinals and finals of the WBC, as far as moving people over, doing the smart thing. Seems the Rays are playing pretty similar baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they're having fun, right? I think that's the combination of having fun, winning, trusting your teammates, playing as a group, having your teammates back. Like there's so many things that go, you know, beyond the scope of just results as a player that help a team win. And the culture that they've built, and I think that's where it starts, is the culture that you build within an organization or that you build within a team. The guys that you evaluate, the guys that you sign as free agents, the guys that you draft to bring into your organization, you have to make sure that they buy into that. Because if they don't buy into that philosophy, then it's never going to work with that player. So, they just do a great job at figuring out, the guys to draft along with the guys that they sign as a free agent because they don't give out a ton of money. So they have to find the diamond in the rough, so to speak. If there ever is one with analytics, and they pick and choose who they want, right? They had Eflin, I think, is their guy this year. They scooped him up from the Phillies, and they I'm almost positive, without being within that group or that organization, is they already knew who they wanted before free agency uh, happened, that they targeted because they felt like there were things that they could do to Eflin to make him a better pitcher in Tampa than where he was. Whether it's, how to use his stuff a little bit better, changing the percentage of what pitches he throws during a game. If he was more four seam fastball with Philly, maybe they thought maybe if we up his pitch percentage with his curveball and back off his four seam and use more two seams, we can find more success with this guy. So again, it's those little things that people don't really think about when certain teams are signing certain players that I think goes a long way. There's things that teams already fundamentally know about a player that maybe the player doesn't even know about a player because of the computer. And then if they do their homework and they're able to sign this guy, then they can apply the plan that they had in place when they sign him. And if the player is on board, and it's probably a conversation that the Tampa Bay Rays have with the agent, and then the agent has with the player, and then that's how you kind of make the decision of where you want to go.
So we talked before about the Cards, and if you're calling up the Cards management and they have an outfield prospect, let's get them right away because whoever it is, if they came out of the card system, they seem to do really well. If you're a team and the Rays are calling you about a guy and they're saying, "I know you got that third baseman on your roster right now, doesn't seem to do much. We'll take him off your hands." Don't teams start to eventually wake up and say, "Man, if the Rays are asking about him, they must be onto something." Do you think a lot of that happens?
There ain't no doubt about it. I mean, that's, well, what do you think? You just brought it up. You said, like, well, teams look there for looking for a coach. We're going to pluck him from a certain organization because they do this really well. Now, you got to make sure that you have the talent that coach can work with to get the best out of them or make your players better. Um, and it's the same thing is, organizations look at other organizations and they try to, uh, you know, try to emulate what they're doing to try to make their organization better and try to win more games. It's like football, right? When a certain defense plays Tom Brady and they shut him down, all those other teams who are playing Tom Brady go and look at the tape of the defense to see how they did it. But a certain team may have better athletes at the defensive position, the defensive line or the linebacking core or the cornerbacks in the backfield. They may have better cornerbacks to run the plan that they want to stop Tom Brady. So there's always those little things that other teams are looking for. There's always an edge that everybody's looking for, no matter what sport you're in. And baseball's no different.
And again, it's really early, so we're gonna stick to the Steve Carsey litmus test, which is 40 games. We're not gonna start getting excited until 40 games. But man, a lot of experts wrote off the Rays this year again, saying the Yanks got stronger, the Jays got stronger, the Red Sox are gonna wake up, Orioles are really coming around. Sorry, Rays, you're just in too tough of a division, and they just seem to find a way. I'm sorry, man. Like we had a book called Moneyball, and you look at what the A's did back in that time. Now, looking at what the Rays have done for the amount of time they have, I think it's time for a sequel to Moneyball because I think they've taken that kind of concept and they've evolved beyond because they've been doing it consistently until they get that World Series. Though I don't know if they'll ever get that pure credit, but it's tough when you have such a payroll disparity. All the analytics in the world, all the scouting in the world, it's really tough because it feels like, Steve, as soon as you develop a person, within a year or two, you got to start signing the $100 million contracts, or else they're going to be gone. The money dollars have come to the point that if you're a small market team, unless you're the Padres, really, you got to hit on 1 year. Otherwise, keeping that band together is next to impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really tough these days. You don't see very many players stick with the same team throughout their career, and that's unfortunate. But as I was once told early in my career, you don't play the game on paper. You can have all the stats, and you can have all the best players, and you can put it on paper. And just because the paper says that their team is going to win, doesn't mean that their team is going to win. I mean, you look at the Padres. The Padres payroll is enormous and it's crazy, and they have all stars at every position, gold gloves at every position, and they're not off to the hottest start. We'll just say that. I'm not saying how 162 is going to play out, but you know, you look at it and you're like, okay, I might be a little bit worried here because we should be a little bit better than what we are this early in the season.
Well, a guy like Brandon Lowe, for example, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Steve. He is not going to hit 60 home runs. I know I may be stretching here, but I don't think these numbers are going to transpire over 6 months worth. But man, is he hitting out of this world? And it just again consistently across the lineup. A guy that I don't think gets enough credit, and you mentioned him, was Yandy Diaz. I love those smooth swings, guys that can take walks, doubles machines. You got to line up with these type of guys. You're just gonna do well. But again, the glue together to me is Arozarena, as far as what he's done, the energy he brings, the spotlight he brings to the Rays. I think he's like more than capable and excited to take on a leadership role on still a fairly young ball club. They have a nice mix there. I'm really excited for them. The one thing is, in the life of baseball, baseball is a really good metaphor for life overall because unfortunately, folks, life is not always fair. Look at how they're doing this at this record, being at a 13-2, for example, after that streak. And what came about? Their three-fifths of the rotation are missing, Tyler Glass, their top pitcher, Tyler Glass now is still away. Don't know how far he's from coming. Spriggs, Jeffrey Spriggs, really off to a great start. Looked like he was really coming to his own. Now he's gonna be gone for quite a while. Could be possibly a few months. The aforementioned Eflin. I love that Eflin signing. I liked him on the Phillies. I thought the Rays could do a lot with him. And Steve, they're just freaking doing this, and three-fifths of the rotation are gone. But Shane McClanahan, Drew Rasmussen, like they're pulling these guys out of every crevice, and they're like, okay, another guy's injured. Fine, we'll bring another guy who's got a 2 year array of one whip. Like they just keep churning them out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they do what is best for their team. They traded Willie Adames to the Brewers when I was over there. and we gave them Fireheisen and Drew Rasmussen. So like they understand if they're going to make a trade, there's value for value, and what they value might be different what other teams value, but that's what they feel like they want in return. And when the trade is made, the trade is made, and they feel comfortable with it. And Cleveland does the same thing. They have to get these players in return from these trades. I mean, obviously, if you look at the Francisco Lindor trade with the Mets, the players that they received back from that, they're getting, above and beyond. I think the production that they expected out of those players. They traded Corey Kluber to Texas to get Class A, and look what he's doing. And Kluber, I think, pitched maybe 15 innings for them before he hurt himself, and was on the shelf, and then left. Left Texas, but that's a difference maker. When a team trades a, perennial all-star for a player for a year because they're in a winning window, and that player doesn't perform up to their expectations, and they give away, a young star, and then Cleveland, reaps the benefits and the rewards for it over a 6-year period. That's a big step in having your organization win ball games.
And a nice team, I think, with a lot, some, if not a lot of similarities. The Brewers also off to a nice start, and I was going to ask you how they look now at Rasmussen. I'm thinking, man, he looked good in our uniform still, but they seem to find guys all the time. They trade away their all-star closer Hader, and Devin Williams just comes in and is on fire. Like so, I think that the Brewers are very much built along the similar lines of the Rays, and just got to keep replenishing and keep finding these guys. It seems.
Essentially that's what it becomes, is you got to know when that player, and I hate to use this term, but his expiration date is with you to get the most value from that player in return in a trade. In the Hader trade, they they felt like that was the next year was his last year, his free agent year, which would have been this year. They were going to pay him X amount of money in arbitration. They already know that figure, and they just felt like, okay, well, if we can pay Devin Williams 3 million or 3.5 million and save 10 million, where can we use that 10 million to better our club and free agency or whatnot? So those are the decisions that are made. They aren't sometimes the most popular decisions with the fans. Sometimes they're not the right decision, but the decision at the time as an organization that have to make to continue the cycle of replenishing their farm system and getting these players back along with the draftees that they have. I mean, you look at their team now, and I watch them, and I've talked to those guys, and you have these young players uh, that are coming out of here, the Joey Weimers, the Bryce Terangs, um, Mitchell, the young center fielder that they have. They're plugging these guys in at league minimum, and then having players around them fit the mold that they want. Their pitching staff, as long as it stays healthy, is going to keep them in games. And these young players with the pieces that they put around with some veteran guys like the Adamises and the Telezes. And Telez isn't making that much money, but they plucked him from Toronto, in a trade, and plugged him in. And now look at him, right? Like, he hit 35 homers last year, and they can pay him a little bit more, and hopefully that production continues. But you never know from year to year what kind of production a player is going to have. They can have a steep drop off, or they can stay consistent with what they are, or they can have an increase in production. And if you get that increase in production and you get a surplus there for the value that you signed that player for, then you put your organization in a great position to compete for, one, the division, and then hopefully get to the playoffs and get hot at the right time and have an opportunity to advance to the World Series and do what everybody plays for, and that's win a ring.
I mean, even the Yankees and Dodgers in my mind have shown there isn't an unlimited amount of money out there, even with the contracts that were being thrown around the last offseason, and people are saying you're a big market team, bad contract, just throw a band-aid on it, move on. Well, the Dodgers, they're eating 22 million of Trevor Bauer, and they didn't go and spread that 22 million elsewhere. They're saying, you know what, there's so much to go around. They let go of Turner and popular fan favorite, and they're saying it's time, and those are the hard decisions. And I've always said, especially when you do well, when you're a big market team and you do well and you hit the playoffs, Are you paying a person based on their what they've done or what their future holds? And I think in baseball, among every other sport, when you're paying a guy on the wrong side of 30 for previous production versus the uncertainty of what's going to come, those are the contracts that bite you more often than not. And teams like the Rays just cannot afford it.
No, you're right. I mean that's just that's the way the game is you again have to make smart decisions as a front office on guys you want to sign, whether it be year to year or multi-year deals. And you got to take into account so many different things. You got to take into account obviously their talent and what you think their production is going to be over the next 5 years if it's a 5 year contract. You got to take into account, is he a good teammate, what his character is he a leader on and off the field? Like those are things that matter when guys get signed to long-term deals. It's just not like this guy's a great player, we're just going to sign him, but he does everything else bad. Because when that production goes and he does everything else bad, you don't have very much left as an organization. So, like I said, kind of getting in, digging a little bit deep under the surface. These are the little things that we talk about that maybe the regular fan doesn't look at, and it looks at just like the production of the player.
Well, I'm gonna try not to get ahead of myself too much and predict the Rays going to the World Series at this point, because again, we are barely into April. But I will say this much, obviously slumps will happen, injuries will happen, but if they can get those pitchers together and they can function anywhere close to their potential, they could have potentially seven starting pitchers out there. That's a really scary proposition. So it's always, to me, a lot of these teams, when I look across the board, if there's anything that's really 2023 has said to me, it's health. It's all going to come down to health and just who gets lucky, who gets bit less by the injury bug. And otherwise, slumps will come, streaks will come, but injuries at the end of the day, I think, are going to decide a lot of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it does every season. I think it's not only injuries, but it's when guys get hurt. If they get hurt earlier in the season and they have some time to recover by the All-Star break, then teams are in a better spot. If they go through the season and they're in a fight for first place come August, and two of their starters go down in mid to late August, then they're in a much tougher spot, especially if it's after a trade deadline. And they can't replenish with veteran players that they can have an expectation of what they're going to do, as opposed to putting a young player out there in a situation that maybe he's not accustomed to.
Well, with all apologies to the Tampa Rays fans out there, I know you were getting excited for a 20-0 start. You were going to break all sorts of records and seeing, will these guys ever lose a game? It's going to happen. And guess what? They're going to lose multiple games. They're going to lose series. And that's just how it's going to go this year. But a great start for them and in a strong division. And it's already off to a great year. And so we're going to pause today on this chapter. When we come back next week, we'll talk about some teams that maybe aren't faring as well, and let's try to give some fans in those cities some hope. Steve Carsey, Big Money Grip, always a pleasure. Thank you for confirming as far as where the Rays are going, and hopefully they'll take those words and keep it running this year.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Look forward to the next one.
See you soon.